Thanks for checking out my video. I want to talk a little bit today about some real estate activism that I've gotten into. The best word I can come up to describe it over the years. So just got a little update email from Zillow. You know how you do, how you get some of these things from Zillow. I don't know where it's even gone now, but here's a zip code update. So this zip code is for Johnson City, Tennessee. Yes, like the one that's in the Wagon Wheel song. And over the years, I have bought a lot of long-term rental property up there because I'll zoom out a little bit here on the map. There is a pretty big college, ETSU, East Tennessee State University. It's got about 15,000 student population. And this little downtown area right here has got a lot of cool old craftsman homes, duplexes, and things like that. That's all walking distance to the college. And in their downtown area here, you see this like Founders Park area. They've really redone a really nice, cool park with just lots of art and a little river that kind of runs through the town. And it's revitalizing an old railroad town downtown with breweries and all that kind of stuff. Cool little shops and skate park and this, that, and the other. Okay, so that's the basic story. So I'm just checking out pricing and things like that. I think it's a pretty good deal. It's not very far from Asheville, North Carolina either. So long story short, years ago, I was buying a couple of buildings. Now, let me also say real quick, I am not a super successful person, okay? I am not filthy rich or anything close to that. I have had a modest amount of success in real estate and in property management. Modest. I have myself a fairly decent portfolio of lower income, lower priced long-term rentals and a couple of mid-range, mid-level long-term rentals. I've got a couple of short-term rentals that I own, and I manage about another 50 properties with short-term and long-term rental for other people. But let me just say that although I'm modestly successful, in the grand scheme of things, I am far from wealthy or anything like that, and I've just done okay. Well, in this particular neighborhood, which again, right where the city redid this whole new park right here, and they really did a great job. And all of this stuff right here is revitalized downtown area with, incubator workspaces and breweries and This whole thing right here is actually a new farmers market they just did. That's really great. And I was able to buy. You can see where all this stuff is. I was able to buy this double lot right here. I actually got it for about $25,000. Now this was years ago because I was buying some other property from the same guy, and he kind of wanted to unload this stuff on me. So I'll try to get to this long story short. He told me, he's like, hey, it's a really sketchy property, but I've got some tenants in there or whatever. Now I will say the guy I was buying this from, and I'm not trying to slam him, it's just the most accurate term I could use. On the nicest way to say it, he was just a very careless and callous property owner, and probably more accurate, and on the worst way I can say it is he's a slumlord. Okay, and part of the reason why I bought these properties from him, I bought a total of 4 buildings from him. Yeah, 4 different properties I bought from this guy at one time. Just trying to remember. It comprised like 19 units. Actually, 21 units with this one because this was a duplex, what I'm about to show you right here. Now, I was able to get them at a good price, which is absolutely a main reason why I bought them. But I also bought them because I knew that, and I'm not trying to virtue signal here, and I'm not trying to, although we all have some vanity and ego, I'm certainly guilty of that, like every human being is, and certainly. But I'm not saying what I'm about to say in a way like looking for praise or anything like that. I'm just I do want to share it as an example though that you can make differences even with modest budgets. And I guess my point is, there's a lot of strife, there's a lot of hardship going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of massive macro problems that seem as if they're just completely unsolvable unless you just have Jeff Bezos billions of dollars money to make differences. And I just think personally, I know from my own personal experience that you can make small and even medium-sized little differences. And I would call this in between a small to medium-sized difference because I basically, my ability, my extra money to invest in things is certainly on the small to barely medium level of the ability to invest. But you can still make investments that absolutely can have a profit motive, but can also have a beneficial motive for your community, society, etc. Okay? And that's what I'm talking about here. So again, this guy was a straight up slumlord. Some of the people, like, I'll tell you one quick story, not on this, I'm going to tell you some crazy stuff about this house. On another house that made me decide to buy this property off this guy, I'm looking at these 3 different buildings in a row. There's about 4 or 5 apartments in each building. We go into one of them. Okay, now this is a 1-bedroom place, fairly big 1-bedroom apartment, like pretty big living room. Walk in, it's completely disgusting. There's mattresses just laying all over the floor. There's a coffee table of some sort overflowing with cigarette butts and alcohol cans and things like that. There's a couple of ratty couches laying around too, or excuse me, in the living room there's a couple of couches and just piles of clothes. In the bedroom there's like 3 mattresses laid on the ground. There's probably about 7 adult men, maybe 2 or 3 females. I couldn't tell. The saddest part is there was probably about a 5-year-old little girl standing on a pile of clothes with no shoes on. There's needles laying around all over this coffee table. And in this back bedroom, there's probably like 5 grown men passed out, all basically have on a heroin fix or whatever, okay? And, because the guy just wanted to show me the place or whatever, so we're going through and looking at the building. And we walked in dressed pretty, normally. This guy's a normal-looking, just working, professional real estate-looking type person, like golf shirt, khaki pants type dude. I'm wearing much the same. These people were so spaced out when we walked into this house that they really didn't even barely acknowledge that we were even there. I mean, they're just staring at the ceiling while this poor little 5-year-old girl or so is bouncing around on this huge pile of dirty clothes. And I'm just sure it's infested with bed bugs and everything else. We walk outside literally stepping over needles, okay? And I asked the guy, because it's just shocking to me, and I asked the guy, say, man, how can you rent to these people and let this happen like this? Now, his response was unbelievable. He said, not unbelievable, because this sadly happens all the time. He's like, oh, man, they pay on time. It's no problem. You know what I mean? He didn't understand what I was saying. He didn't understand that I was saying, like, man, how in the world can you be the steward of this property and allow this type of thing to happen under your watch? I really feel horrible for this little girl to this day. And I did call the police and let them know what I saw, because there's no way I could not do that. And I really hope that something turned out good for that little girl. But yeah, that was my problem with it. Like, man, how can you have this attached to your name? How can you be in charge of this? And he just thought I was talking about that because I was worried about my money, worried about getting his money. Just unbelievable, the lack of empathy, the callous nature of that. Just so sad, so sad. So I decided then and there talking to him, and I was not very even super nice to this guy, but I wanted to get this deal done. That was actually, although initially I was interested in buying these properties because the price was super cheap and in an area that's kind of, up and coming, turning over, whatever you want to say. Having the college was actually expanding at the time. They like doubled their student enrollment. This was like about 7 or 8 years ago. And so still a little bit of, you had this lower price effect still from the great real estate recession, especially in the United States. So it was just a good deal. And I knew things would pick up and that these places could be turned around and be great long-term rental prospects. So I was interested in that, but my point is when I saw the potential also to improve something, and even though I have modest means, relatively modest means, I saw that I had the ability in capital, and I also had the ability in my own skill sets to be able to remodel and do and fix these things and not have it where there's needles laying around, just those kind of things. So anyway, in dealing with the guy, he turned me on he's like, oh, I got another place too. Now, long since been torn down, but I just happened to glance at it at Zillow. Now, you see some other houses here. I got it for $25,000, this double lot, and some of these other cheaper single lots right here. You can see what they're going for. These, again, this neighborhood's nothing special, but a good investment in the long run. And houses that have been remodeled certainly coming along. Anyway, long story short, let's just take a look at this place. It doesn't exist now because it has been torn down. Let me just tell you this story. So this house right here, now sadly, this was a really nice craftsman style home built probably around the 1920s, and it had been since cut up into a duplex, a downstairs here and then an upstairs. There's a little crazy attic room. Now, when this is, Google just hasn't updated this in years, obviously, because this was about 7 years ago when I bought it. What's interesting, we come to the end of the street right here. You'll see, I guess, a more modern photo where now you see that it's gone. So there was about 20 grown men living in this house. There was an absolute 100% drug dealing operation and essentially prostitution operation going on at this house. These pictures are actually showing it in a relatively clean state. At any given time, there would be double the amount of cars here and all kind of junk in the back. When I kind of saw it, now don't get me wrong, the price was cheap enough. $25,000 for both of these lots was definitely a good deal. And at the time when I was buying it too, I thought maybe I could remodel this house because it actually had, some of these old craftsman homes have just really good wood in them and structure and whatnot. It ended up, I'll kind of rant a little bit here. Like when I first drove by it, there was probably like 6 guys sitting up here on this top part and probably 10 guys down here. Just beer cans everywhere, blaring music, just the bane of this neighborhood, which again, 2 blocks away from this revitalizing downtown and this regular just working class neighborhood where there's still a lot of people, a lot of older folks living here that have paid these houses off a long time ago, retired on fixed incomes and stuff, and this guy's totally slumlording it here. And unfortunately, for better or worse, Johnson City's kind of really loose with their rental laws, so you can pretty much like rent anything to somebody, and it's very, very hard for a place to be condemned, especially if people are living in it, even if the conditions of the place are atrocious. Well, in this house with crazy old wiring in it, super big fire trap. That's just what's weird. Like, it's extremely difficult sometimes for places to get condemned, even if they're super fire hazard or whatever. Again, like 10 people living per floor in this house. It's just crazy. 1 bathroom that barely worked or whatever. So once I finally took possession and bought the place, I went by there and talked to like the main person there, and looked at the place, and it was just rough. Like, I had to completely check my pants when I came out of the place to make sure bed bugs didn't jump on me. Now, I can be crass and crude person, especially if anybody knows me well, and somewhat sarcastic. And what I'm about to say, I just want to tell you, just kind of warn you, like, I'm not trying to be funny, okay? I'm just trying to really articulate what happened here. I walk into this front room right here, and essentially, when I say that there's a active prostitution business happening out of this place and drug dealing business, I'm not making that up. I'm not guessing about that. I'm not like, projecting some kind of bias onto it. I'm telling you what I saw with my own eyes, okay? I walk into here, this door, and there's a little side vestibule type room. Now, again, you could tell when this was all one house back in the day in the 20s, this was a very nice, well-built, craftsman-style home, nice round staircase going up, all this kind of stuff, all been deteriorated and rotted out and covered in mold since then, sadly. But in that vestibule room, there's a nasty, like, queen-size mattress on the floor, a really in bad shape looking woman laying down there, passed out, smells like just disgusting. She's covered up, half naked, in a little blanket, just completely passed out, looked like in kind of like a drug stupor to me. And what I'm about to say here, I'm really not trying to be funny, although it's just so crazy that you might almost shockingly find it funny. But there was literally on the wall a like Purell foam sanitizer dispenser, like you would see at a gas station or something like that in a public bathroom, right? Or like in a kitchen, a commercial kitchen, where you could get and dispense hand sanitizer, that these guys had mounted on the wall, and a box of condoms laying next to this, which at least they were using condoms, I guess. Not trying to hide it at all. Now, again, this is the same landlord that this guy was just, and again, this is what this landlord tells me. Oh, and they pay on time and everything. They actually pay me weekly. Okay? Now, I wasn't going to do that. I'm letting the guy know, like, hey, man, listen, I bought the place. I'm going to be remodeling. This guy, of course, been there for years, never had any kind of lease. So I'm like, look, I'm giving you your notice. And this guy's trying to hand me cash, all kind of stuff to stay. And the whole time, too, there's a whole nother door going on. There's people driving up. I was there for maybe 20, 30 minutes checking the place out. And probably saw in 20 or 30 minutes at least 5 cars pull up, somebody walk out to them while I'm there. Like, so bold, okay? Because a lot of these cities, too, there's no mystery where some of this stuff goes down. And people would get arrested here all the time, but they just let them right out of jail, whatever. I'm not even going to go down that road. That's a whole nother conversation. But so anyway, I just gave him notice, like, hey, you guys got to get out of here. And the guy, again, just kept trying to give me cash. It was a very difficult eviction. It took me probably 2 months of really hard work and a couple of $1,000s to finally get these people evicted out of this house. Again, actively operating a prostitution business and selling drugs openly, and it still took like 2 months to deal with it. That's why a lot of this stuff happens. It's just crazy, but you can make a difference if you try, even if you don't have a lot of means. And fortunately, I did finally get them out. Crazy. When they finally, I really took full possession back of the place and they were gone. Let me just tell you, went into the kitchen. There was like a half-processed deer carcass in the sink. It was disgusting. There was, apparently they were cooking in the backyard a lot, like in a pit in the ground, all kind of deer bones and stuff. It's just really weird. The bathrooms were utterly disgusting. Eventually, what's also kind of messed up, and I'll kind of come to the end of this video if you've watched this far. Thanks for suffering through. what's crazy is I started to kind of maybe remodel the place and gut it. Well, then the city comes knowing that I bought it. They immediately slapped all kind of new ordinances on the place because there's a new owner in me that I guess would respond to things because they were trying. This other guy that owned it was dodging them for years or whatever. And anyway, I went ahead and decided to demolish the building because they wanted me to either start taking out permits to do full remodel or demolish it because it was such a nuisance. Now, why they didn't help me evict the people day one, it's just crazy what the municipalities sometimes do. I'll finish up by saying today it's still a vacant lot. I might be turning it into some townhouses or maybe a coffee shop with maybe some living space above it. The way this neighborhood is now zoned, they're trying to get a little more density because it's next to this downtown. I'll tell you though, one of the best things about it is once I bought it and was cleaning it up, I was out there working one day and I saw this little old lady sitting on the porch of this house right behind here. So I kind of waved at her a little bit and she kind of waved back. So I went over and started talking with her. Turns out she's an older lady, I'd say probably in her 70s or something like that. And she had been living in this house her entire life, or entire adult life, had bought this home years ago and retired into it, was a school teacher. Her husband had passed away or whatnot. You can see she's kept her place up really nice or whatever. And we started talking, and first of all, she thanked me for not continuing the slumlord activities. She said she'd been terrorized for years by these people living at this house and stealing stuff from her and everything else. And just crazy loud music and all that kind of stuff and calling the police and nothing getting done, blah, 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 blah. And then she proceeded to tell me too, she's like, wow, when I first bought this house, which is like back in the 60s or something like that, she's like, there was a nice family that lived there. Kids used to play in the yard. Her kids used to play. They all played in that yard right there in an old swing set or whatever. And she said, just so sad to see what it had turned into over the years, and was really happy and thanked me for not being a slumlord and deciding to do something different with this. So I just wanted to share that because I just saw it here on Zillow. I hadn't seen these pictures in a long time because it's been long gone. And I don't know, maybe that might inspire you. I'm going to turn a profit on this project over time and you can also do something really nice for a community and make changes. It's really hard to change the big macro problems that we're all facing, but everybody, even down to someone who has $1 in their pocket, you can pick up a piece of trash that's in your path today and put it in a trash can. You can help somebody out with something that they're struggling with. If you have a modest amount of success and means and capital, you can find little projects like this that can not only make a profit, but also you can go maybe out of your way a little bit and make a difference too. I don't know. I just thought I would share it. Crazy little small cap real estate stuff. Anyway, if you watched the video this long, thanks for checking it out, and have a good one. I'll catch you on the next video.